YouTube, and Twitter. And I'm here today with the man with the plan and the videos, Patrick Willems. Patrick, how are you doing today, man?
I am honestly doing pretty well, David. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Obviously, it's been a few weeks since we've done something like this, and the reason for that is because a worldwide pandemic has disrupted work streams around the world, and one of the many work streams that is being disrupted is the creation of videos and content.
It's true. It's a. I think it would be a massive understatement to say this is a very strange time.
Yeah, I think so as well. We typically use this commentary live broadcast / video to talk about things like, hey, tell me more about the movies of Robert Zemeckis, or let's dive into the sultry nature of Mask of Zorro. But today I think we're going to spend more of our time talking about how this has impacted your, I want to hear about your working process when it comes to making videos in this time, and how the most recent video came to be, which is a follow-up to a bunch of topics from videos you've made over the course of the last year or two, right?
It's true. Also, for some weird reason, I can't. You texted me the link, right?
Oh, yeah, I did. Did it not work?
No, it's very strange. In my iMessages, it's on the sidebar next to your name. It shows the link, but then in the actual messages, I can't. It's not appearing. I can't
see.
reach
Okay,
it.
let me try this again. Here we go. This is what happens when you do it live, folks. You know.
Oh, there we go.
Does that work?
There we go.
All right.
Yes. And okay, and I'm tweeting it right now. Okay,
right.
Perfect.
Okay.
So, sorry, you were saying.
It's okay. No. Don't worry, dude. It's only your channel we're burning up time on. So, I'll just tell you a little bit about my experience. Was that like,
Please, yeah.
I wanted to do these videos with you for two reasons. Number one, always love working with you on something. Love talking with you about movies. That's the primary driver.
Likewise.
Number two, felt like, hey, this is an opportunity for me to promote my own things, promote my YouTube channel at youtube.com/DaveChensky, and like get the word out about that amongst people who are like-minded, love movies, And I felt like I was in a pretty good groove making movies. I was like, okay, I think I've figured this out. I can go see a movie each week, come home, just record straight into the camera for 3 hours, or get my colleague and friend Melissa Taminga to record a review with me, and then like we're off to the races. I'm like, man, I'm feeling good. I can do this every single week, and I'm feeling good about this.
Right.
Literally haven't made a video since the last one we did together, because I think a couple things happened. First of all, I was on sabbatical from work, and then my sabbatical ended, so now I'm working full time again. So that was already that's already just like taking a huge chunk of my time in terms of making videos, but also the global pandemic hit, and my motivation to make videos has gone down dramatically. Like, I feel like just getting through each day mentally intact has been kind of my priority versus, hey, do people want to hear what I think about The Way Back, the new Ben Affleck movie? But that's been me, and
Right.
and at the same time that my motivation has declined, I also know that people really value an escape from the challenges that we're dealing with right now. And so I do think it's valuable, people creating entertainment still during this challenging time. So tell me about, as the reality of your current situation set in, what was your thought process? Because you make YouTube videos for a living now, and you are stranded is too strong of a word, but you are sheltering in place at your parents' house, right? Away from the things and the places that you'd usually use to make videos.
Exactly. As I've said before, I came up here for what was supposed to be a 3-day trip to shoot the Mask of Zorro video, and that was over a month ago. And so I was lucky in the sense that I had most of my camera gear with me, but still a lot of the stuff, the resources that I use to make videos all the time they're back at my apartment in the city. the videos always tend to involve like, multiple people, other cast members, and obviously they're all in separate places. And so I will say what was very fortunate for me is that I had already for late March, late March, early April, scheduled a bit of a break from the regular videos. Last fall, I overworked myself and kind of burnt out. And then going into this year, when scheduling the videos, deliberately scheduled little breaks every few months just to sort of like relax and recharge and not just work relentlessly for like 8 months on end. And so this all hit right when I was already kind of slowing down a little bit and taking some time to just step back and not think about work. And what that really meant is that it was a time when I was able to just kind of adjust to like the new normal, I guess, or like this new like my current situation of like, okay, I guess I'm just sort of like living at my parents' house for a while.
Right.
And so I got to adjust to that and like develop a daily routine here. And then get back to work on videos. So it really, like, again, I've been very lucky with all of this in the sense that I can keep working relatively like without too much change. I'm in a pretty comfortable position. But yeah, so that was really it. So I was able to slow down a bit and then start thinking about it like, okay, how am I going to start making videos again?
Right. And I do think it bears noting that, yeah, we are very privileged in the sense that we do have the ability to work from home, however you want to define that. So we do feel very lucky. All that said, you had plans for videos that you're going to make in the future. You alluded to that in the most recent commentary, the most recent follow-up video. And I guess you had to cancel those plans. And so, like, what was your thought process of like, when I need to cancel these videos, like what you're going to do to replace them?
This mostly happened again. It was late March, and I will say the thing that this is not what this commentary is about, but I'm so relieved for what happened with the previous video. We have now established this April Fool's video routine, our tradition, where that will be the time that we make a video where Jake and Matt Torpy, two of my main collaborators, sort of hijack the channel and then try to make their own video essay. And originally we had a whole plan for that video that involved us all being in the same room. And that was where I started to get really worried about, like, we have to hit this release date and what do we do? And then Jake thankfully came up with a whole new plan to like, where we could still make pretty much the same video, but the storyline involved us all being remote. And so once that was solved, I really just I looked at the calendar of videos that I already had like lined up to make and realized that to make them the way I wanted to make them without like drastically compromising my plan for them, I really had to postpone them. There might be one or two that I could potentially still find a way to make in my current situation, but I think to do the best version of them, I would rather wait until, however long it is, but like until I can go back to making videos the way I used to. And so what happened was during that time that I was just kind of, taking some time off and relaxing, I just got into the routine of watching 2 to 3 movies every single day. All movies that I had not seen before. I've watched like 50 plus movies, I think, since I've been quarantined.
Wow.
Yeah, I've just been trying to go through like classics that are like things that I like right now. I'm going through, I'm filling in all the gaps in Brian De Palma's filmography that I have not seen before. And it just happened that as I started watching good movies that I hadn't seen before, I just started getting ideas for new videos. And it just happened naturally. And before I knew it, I had like a whole list of new video ideas that were actually smaller, like that were not like 30+ minute video essays, but were actually like a little more, maybe like 10-minute videos. And I think that's what we're going to have coming up soon. And it really, like, I'm again just lucky that it just kind of fell into place. And before I knew it, I had just a list of video topics that actually worked to make while confined to this house.
So, very cool. I'm glad that the channel will continue despite the challenges that you're facing. So let's dive into the most recent video then. This commentary is going to be a little different because kind of the video itself was commentary. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So I don't want to do too much of like commentary on commentary, but ultimately that's probably what this is going to be. All that said, I did think that there was this thing you brought up towards the beginning of the video that I've certainly been experiencing as well, which is that there are many celebrities and stars right now that are also in the same situation as us to some degree, in the sense that they need to shelter in place and are confined to their houses and must make content using whatever they have lying around. And that in some ways, many YouTubers such as yourself are actually better equipped to make that content, but you're also not John Krasinski. So it's like this kind of Twilight Zone-esque scenario where, you these other people who are like way more famous are muscling in on the YouTube turf, but at the same time, it often doesn't look as good as something that you could make, right? That's kind of that's what I got out of the opening of your video.
Yeah, it was funny. I was I think a couple weeks ago, because I've honestly been enjoying just sort of like watching like talk show hosts kind of learn how to do this on their own and try to adapt to it. And I tweeted about how amusing I found it that or how much I've enjoyed just watching talk show hosts learn how to be YouTubers. And a guy replied who actually works on John Oliver's show and was telling me about how they've basically been like just ordering gear and like shipping it to his house, and the crew has been sending very detailed directions about how to shoot stuff and how to upload the footage to servers so that they can download it and edit it. So yeah, like I honestly would love to see like a documentary just digging into just this process of having to suddenly like, teach the hosts to become their own crews.
Right. Well, for John Oliver specifically, I think a lot of that has paid off because his show looks awesome. Out of all the shows, I think his looks the best. His is the one that has the most continuity. It's basically like the same show except no studio audience and no like city backdrop.
Well, what the guy told me was that the art director for the show actually went to his house and set up the table and backdrop.
Oh wow!
And I think I think that's one thing that most of them haven't done.
Yeah. So in any case, it has been interesting to see everyone adjust to this, and I'm curious how long this adjustment is going to take, because I don't know that this is going to be over anytime soon. We may start going back into cities and things may slowly reopen, but everything I've read has said we're going to be dealing with this in some form or another for the course of the next year or two. So it'll just be interesting to see how we adapt to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you bring up during the course of your latest video. I mean, there were a couple points that you brought up, and then we'll kick it to questions in the chat room after this.
Sure.
A couple things you bring up that, I mean, you talk about cats, which, first of all, shame on you for not referring to the butthole cut in your follow-up. I mean, I think that's probably the most notable piece of news that's happened about cats since then. So, like, pretty
it really is
significant oversight.
I don't know how I left it out. We literally talked about it on the Slash Filmcast.
Well, and the Daily Beast broke a whole story about the fact that it's a real thing, So
I know. I mean, to be fair, a thing that happens in every single video is I export it and immediately realize like 5 things that I forgot to include or forgot to mention. And then usually what happens is I I get a bunch of texts like immediately after I released this video, I got a text from a friend saying that that in the J.J. Abrams part, I missed an opportunity. I should have made a reference to the focus group sketch from I Think You Should Leave and say, JJ, you have no good Star Wars ideas. Another friend texted me saying that I should have called the Fast and Furious part The State of the Furious. But then also like I exported the video and immediately realized that I mistakenly I said that Freddie Mercury was gay when he's bisexual, which is a stupid mistake that I feel dumb about. And this stuff happens with every single video. And I forgot the butthole cut in Cats.
YouTube videos are never done; they're just abandoned, I think is the quotation that really captures that.
It's true.
But yeah, so Cats is an insane nightmare, and many people have already talked about it, and I understand. Like I feel the same way too. Some people have asked me to make some cat stuff, and it's just like there's no.
You actually made a good Cats video.
Yeah, thank you.
After you saw the movie,
I appreciate that. You can find that on my YouTube channel. But yeah, I feel like my wife and I were thinking of doing like a fundraiser for COVID-19 related things, and it's like one of the things we would do is like watch Cats and talk about it, and it's like, well, we already did that. Plus, like so many other people have already done that. Cats just feels like it has been mined for maximum internet content at this point. But
right,
like what more is there to say? It was such a cultural force of nature that just kind of was like an asteroid that like hit the planet and like vaporized.
Or a movie that bombed spectacularly.
It vaporized 100,000 gallons of ocean water and left a complete trail of destruction in its wake. And now there's not that much more to say about it. It's just like, well, what more can be said about that thing?
I mean, that was really kind of the motivation behind the whole video, because these were all things that I've just been asked about so much. And in each case, I'm just like, I'm not going to do another Cats video. Like, my videos tend to be, 15 plus minutes long. And okay, like Terrence Malick made a new movie. I can't, like, that's not a whole video right there.
I think there's this kind of what you're alluding to is there's often a tension between what you and I, or let's just say specifically you as a creator of things, or creator of commentaries, or what have you, whatever you want to call yourself. There's a question, like a tension between what you want to make and what the audience wants to see from you. Because people are like, I want Patrick's take on Cats, but you have a whole different set of priorities, right? Your priority is not just like, I'm going to just make whatever people want me to make. You want to actually contribute something to the discourse. You want to do something that like is something that's your individual take that hasn't been done before, or that is going to meaningfully add to people's understanding of things. And if you don't feel like that's possible, then you probably won't do it, right?
That's totally it. And plus, since these videos take 2 weeks to make, it has to be something that like I want to commit 2 weeks of my life to.
Yeah. Because people, I don't think people make that connection, right? When they watch the video, they're like, "Oh, well, hey, I had fun watching that today." I was going to say on my commute, but many of us don't have commutes. I had fun watching that on my toilet today. Probably it took Patrick, 3 hours to put that together or something like that. But no, it's like weeks of your life you're dedicating to it, right?
Right, exactly. It has to be something that I really feel very strongly about and have a lot to say about. And look, if you want to know my thoughts on like any movie, like I say in the video, you can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd, because I post a little like one sentence review, often stupid ones, on Letterboxd for every movie I watch. And so you can go there if you really need to know if I liked something or not. And I will say, by the way, I highly recommend that everyone check out David's Letterboxd, because I think there'll be a link to it in the description, because your lists in particular are really excellent.
Well, I appreciate that. The list actually went so viral that Letterboxd actually interviewed me because
I saw that.
Yeah, so I was like, And I was very grateful to the interview because they were like, I felt bad being interviewed, to be honest, because there's so many people who have like contributed more to Letterboxd than me. But I did make like 3 or 4 lists, and like some of them went like super mega viral, like tens of thousands of retweets, and Taika Waititi retweeted one of them. So it's like, it's like, okay, it's awesome that that's happened. And also I wanted to shout you out, Patrick, on the because they asked me at the end of the interview, like, do you want to shout anyone out? Who are 3 people you'd recommend following? And of course, like, it's gonna be Patrick, it's gonna be like Scott Tobias, but like all those people, all you people, you already have tens of thousands of followers. You know what I mean? Like, you already have like attained a pretty high level in Letterboxd canon, so I tried to highlight some like lesser known people instead. But you would have been at the top, Patrick, if you weren't already at the top. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
but this basically does get back to the point of yeah, Letterboxd is a very useful tool if you just want to be like, hey, I just watched this movie from like 20 years ago. What did this guy think of it? And especially because it's a great way to like waste time just like going through rating every movie you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So for a lot of it's like you can probably find out like what we thought of something on there.
It is a very soothing process to go through it and like rate a bunch of movies in a row, because like the user interface of Letterboxd makes it so that like it just feels good to, choose a movie. Like, the art is beautiful. You click on it, you rate it, and it's just like, oh, I feel like I'm building something here,
I know. I'll never forget. So back in the days when there was no streaming Netflix, when it was only discs, my junior year of college, I remember just one Sunday, I probably had a paper to write that I didn't want to write. I just went through Netflix and spent the day because back then Netflix, like you could
rate it. You could like do a star rating, right?
Out of 5 stars, just like Letterboxd. And I went through and did my best to rate every movie I'd ever seen because Netflix would like give like curated recommendations. I'm like, this is fun and feels like I'm like accomplishing something even if I'm not.
Yes.
But also 100%. I want to get to the point where they only recommend things I haven't seen that I might actually want to watch.
Right.
And I gotta say I enjoy that process.
Yeah, it's very soothing. It does feel like you're creating something even though you're not really creating something. It's also kind of a way of like, hey, we spend so much time watching movies. You've spent what sounds like over 100 hours watching movies in the last month. And it's kind of a way of acknowledging like, hey, that meant something, right? Like, it might not mean that much, but it meant something, and I'm going to make a star rating to indicate that that's the case.
Exactly.
I got to ask you about that, though. You've watched over 50 movies. Can you give me, like, a top 3 over the course of the last month?
Probably.
Think about it. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. We maybe think about it. We'll come back to it. How about that?
It's funny. I think we kind of talked about this a bit on the Slash Filmcast episode I was on to talk about Bloodshot.
Yes.
But I had gone through before I was, currently I'm filling in all my gaps in De Palma's filmography. I was doing Tony Scott before.
Yes.
And Crimson Tide is way up there.
Awesome.
Yep. That's up there. Oh my God, I'm trying to think.
Any De Palma favorites?
Well, so right now I have favorite De Palma films, but I've been watching his earlier movies. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen like the early De Palma comedies?
I don't know if I have.
The ones with Robert De Niro?
No, I don't think I have.
It's so weird. Before De Niro hooked up with Scorsese, he made like 3 movies with De Palma, and they were all comedies.
Huh.
And they're strange. There's a point, and like there's this one. I just recently watched this one De Palma movie called Get to Know Your Rabbit, which it's basically De Palma, and you can see his style in it, but it's basically him doing like a combo of like a sex comedy and like a Monty Python-esque like absurdist thing. Mm-hmm. And it has in a supporting role Orson Welles as a guy who trains tap dancing magicians.
Yeah, that sounds pretty wild.
It is. I will say I think my favorite early De Palma one that I watched so far is Obsession, which is basically just him making Vertigo. But it's cool. I liked it. And also, I wasn't crazy about the Fury, but the final 30 seconds are some of the best final 30 seconds in film history.
Yeah, I saw you. I saw you tweeting about that.
Yeah.
Any other directors' filmographies you've been going through?
I went through a bunch of McTiernan movies that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
His first movie, if you haven't seen Nomads, it's not good, in my personal opinion. But it's strange. It's really strange that he went from that to Predator immediately.
I think McTiernan's a great filmmaker. I mean, but it's so, his whole story is so wild. You know, the whole going to jail and everything like that.
Yep.
He went.
Apparently, he's got a new movie coming out.
He went to literal, like, physical and career jail for a while, but now he's coming back.
Yeah, I'm so curious. And I watched a lot of westerns from the 70s that I hadn't seen. Watched all of I watched a bunch of Clint Eastwood westerns. I just been trying to like choose movies very quickly. So you know how it's so easy to get stuck, you know, spending an hour just browsing through every streaming service to be like, so you know, like what do they have here? What am I in the mood for? And instead, I've just been trying to choose like immediately and just like go from like, okay, you know, this movie by this director, I'll watch more movies by this director. I'll watch more movies in this genre. Just, you know, trying to choose fast and watch as much as I can.
I think that's a great policy.
And I've been generating.
I spend so much time browsing, like just flipping through the selections, because it is. Sometimes it can be more fun to think about what you want to watch as opposed to actually watching it.
I know.
It's a very dangerous game to play because you end up just flipping through rather than actually. I mean, even watching something is arguably not accomplishing that much, but it's more than flipping through the choices. You know.
Right. I've gotten stuck flipping through choices so many times that I've just been making a concentrated effort to not do that.
I think that's a great policy.
And it's been good. I've generated a lot of fun video ideas, and what's been fun about what I've been coming up with are a lot of these are videos that I might not normally make if I wasn't quarantined.
Right.
And part of what I wanted to do
you mean this video and future videos that you haven't made yet, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But part of why I wanted to what I've been working on for the past few weeks is this whole like new format of kind of like making my own talk show.
Yeah.
Which will be continuing. Is I wanted to try to make a set format that I could use for the duration of like while I'm quarantined here. That was also like malleable enough to like play around with, but where a lot of these smaller, like maybe I know this video was long, but the following ones will not be as long. But that would work for like these sort of like 10-minute videos.
Yeah.
And I think we've got some fun stuff coming up soon.
Very cool. Looking forward to it. Hey, before we move on, favorite John McTiernan movie?
Favorite John McTiernan movie?
It's tough, man. It's tough.
Is Die Hard too obvious?
You know, I gotta go with Die Hard. Let's do this. How about top two? Top two, okay? Because Die Hard's probably my number one as well.
I think it's Die Hard and Predator.
Die Hard and Predator. I'm gonna go Die Hard and Thomas Crown Affair. I'm gonna say Thomas Crown Affair.
You know, that's one that I have not seen in about 12 or 13 years, and maybe even longer than that. And I remember really liking and should just rewatch.
Yeah, I think a lot of it holds up. It's a lot of fun, and love the score and the soundtrack. Also have seen a renewed appreciation for The Hunt for Red October recently online. Went on sale for $5.
Watched that for the first time recently.
Oh, what'd you think of it? What'd you think of Hunt for Red October?
It was great. I thought it was really great.
Yeah, great movie. Like he has like so many all-timers on there. You know, just like.
Okay, so here's the thing that I find wild, and I will say this is leading up to a movie that I have not seen. So McTiernan had this like legendary run where it goes Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October. It's like that is the kind of.
You could literally just quit after that and have like contributed really meaningfully to the cinematic canon at that point.
Exactly, and then he do you know what he follows that up with?
Uh, Flight of the Intruder. Is that what we're talking about?
No. He follows this up with a movie called Medicine Man.
Oh, right, the Sean Connery.
Yeah, Sean Connery and Lorraine Bracco in in a South American jungle searching for a cure for cancer.
Yes,
I think.
that's right.
I did not actually watch it, but I convinced a friend to watch it, who was also curious about it, and he said it's not great. But like it's weird because you look at it and it's like I guess that was sort of like his like blank check movie that he'd made all of these like huge acclaimed hits, and then it's like, okay, McTiernan, what do you want to do now? And he's like, I'm gonna take Connery to the jungle and make a drama called Medicine Man.
So you have not seen Medicine Man yet, though.
I have not.
But
good
homework for the quarantine.
Honestly, maybe I'll get to it. Maybe I'll rewatch Thomas Crown Affair, which I do really. I mean, also I'm just obsessed with heist movies, and it's been a while since I saw that one. Also, I will say, it is interesting how have you seen the original Thomas Crown Affair?
No, I have not.
So in the original one, it's not about stealing art; it's about robbing banks. And also in that movie, Thomas Crown does not do the heists himself.
Yeah, an interesting twist on the premise of the original. Oh, I mean the new one. No, I'm just I'm being facetious.
It's really one of those things where I get with the remake where it's like, wouldn't this be better if like he did the heists? If like he stole the stuff? And I like the original. It's cool.
But you think it's one of those rare remakes that improves on the original?
I'll have to watch the remake again because it's been a while. But I do think just in terms of how they approached it, they made some pretty smart decisions. Just in terms of like, first of all, stealing art is just inherently more glamorous. And like, what if you actually got to see, instead of it like in the original, Steve McQueen just like kind of hangs out while other people steal the stuff that he like organized the heist. It's more exciting to watch the person do it themselves.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The heists in Thomas Crown Affair are really great, and also I think Pierce Brosnan and Rene Russo have great chemistry together. I mean, in the last commentary we talked about like there being really exciting romances in movies, and that's one that I would say like that falls into that category. And you got Dennis Leary being the best Dennis Leary character he could play, which is like a cop who's seen it all on DGAF, so really appreciate the new Thomas Crown Affair. I did some research a little bit after the fact, and apparently it's actually really a bad idea to steal art because it can be difficult to sell the art, right? Because you can't sell the art to in general, if you're going to go through the trouble of stealing art, you want there to be a way to make millions of dollars off it. You're not stealing art to make like $100, right? So then that means that you need to have like a huge buyer, right? Like somebody who's really rich. And in general, those people, a component of the art they are buying is what's called chain of title, which is like the assurance that what they are purchasing is a legitimate piece of art, and here's who's owned it in the past and here's where it's been. So you're only limiting yourself to people who are willing to buy art on the DL, basically, which is like, do you really want to deal with those people anyway? I mean, you are an art thief. Why bother taking additional risks? But anyway, I thought that was interesting. Like, basically, if you're trying to get rich stealing things, art is a very inconvenient way to do so. So, PSA.
Yes. It's funny hearing you talk about that. So my senior like project film in college was a movie about art thieves. And so I saw someone mention it in the comments there. John Woo's Once a Thief.
Yes, great movie.
Which is good movie, and which is a very John Woo movie about art thieves. And so I just in research for that, I just remember like watching every movie about stealing art and just like heist movie in general, like basically ever made.
Yeah.
And then on and off, I've like kind of like returned to it over time. I kind of realized that I did the sort of a classic student film problem where I tried to cram like a feature film into a 20-minute movie. And so I like on and off, I'll return to it and like work on taking that initial like premise from my student film and like turning it into a like feature screenplay, and the whole and the struggle with what do you do with
What
the
you
art
do with
after
the
you
art
steal
after
it.
you steal it, yeah.
It is something I definitely made a point to address because yeah, it's hard to sell a thing that's clearly stolen.
Yes, yes. But also, Esper Fitzroy in the chat says that Thomas Crown just wanted to look at it himself because he was already rich. He didn't need to sell it. So that was actually
Yeah.
a very plausible reason why someone would want to steal art for the thrill of it, which is
Exactly.
what was in the movie, right?
I think that's the best reason to steal art.
Yeah. I mean, not that we'd ever encourage it, but if you're going to, that's the best reason.
Right. Exactly.
But we would never encourage it.
No,
Don't
never.
do it. Don't do it. But if you're going to, that's the reason. Okay.
I mean, especially now. Stay away from art museums. Stay at home.
Yeah. Speaking of thrills, I want to talk to you about Six Underground.
Yes.
Because you are one of the most preeminent Bayologists on the internet right now. And you made a great series on Michael Bay that I quite enjoyed. But this is the first time I've watched one of your videos, and I'm like, really, Patrick? You know, because usually I'm like, oh yes, I've never thought about it that way. Thank you, Patrick, for bestowing upon me these pearls of wisdom. That's 99% of the time. That's my reaction to the video, right?
That's very nice of you.
Which is what I think you're going for. And then I was watching, I was like, really? Is that really Six Underground's biggest problem? Because I thought it was the completely incoherent plot and action staging. I mean, even just from a pure continuity level, you know, like basic continuity in films, like if you're shooting a conversation between two people, you cut back and forth, and there's like a glass of water between them. The glass of water should ideally stay at the same level, you know, like as you're cutting back and forth. I mean, you have whole situations where a car crash begins, and then literally by the end of the car crash, they're on a whole different street, and not by design. Like it looks like, you know, the car crash begins, and then cut to a reverse angle, and it's a different location. And that kind of thing happens multiple times during the course of the movie. And that I'm not even talking about the plot. I'm just talking about from a pure technique standpoint. There is a lot of mayhem. There's a lot of like things being destroyed and people being murdered and stuff like that. But it's also just an assault on the senses. You know, in a sense that like it's not like the action is staged particularly clearly, or you get a good. What's great about it is the moments are really viscerally exciting. Like from moment to moment, it is really well done. Like if you're evaluating just a moment individually, but when you try to piece it together, in my opinion, it doesn't really all hang together. And again, not even getting to the plot. But you honed in on Ryan Reynolds as the biggest problem with the movie. Tell me more about that.
Okay.
Let me ask you a different way. If you thought if it was a different actor that wasn't Ryan Reynolds in the movie, like a Nicolas Cage or someone else, you think that Six Underground would have worked better as a film, or would have been a good film?
I mean, I think Reynolds is representative of, I think, a problem with the movie in terms of that. I feel like it doesn't quite know what it wants to be, and so it's. I do get what you're saying about the continuity there, and I do think like. I feel like a lot of Bay movies, they do kind of have that sensory overload that you just have to kind of submit to, where it is sort of like pure motion and sensation. And I think, I mean, if you really want to get into it, I think, again, the movie doesn't really know what it wants to be. If it wants to be a serious story, if it wants to just be like Bay running wild and just pure mayhem and like unbridled insanity. But what gets tough about it is the way it jumps around in time, and then it will begin with this like really anarchic car chase, and then it will become about like, oh no, we have to do this important mission to take down this dictator of this country, and this really matters. And also here are like tragic backstories of some of the characters, and
not all, just some.
Not all. And there's so much going on that I think, again, I honestly could have spent like 3 times as long just talking about this movie. But I think if they had just made it more focused, maybe just a linear story that was just about like this, this mission to like take down a bad guy. Also, I'd rather it wasn't like the dictator of a country if it was just like some more generic bad guy, because when you get into like a crusading billionaire taking the law into his own hands, which is Batman now that I say it.
Well, your last video was about this, Patrick, right? Like it's
true.
It's about billionaires that are so benevolent that they are using their wealth and fame to save us from the dictators.
Very true. But I think the sort like when it gets into the more serious like political stuff, like with this country that they're trying to save, that's when it's like I feel like they're overstepping their bounds. But yeah, the movie it's so all over the place, and I do think that Ryan Reynolds, just his persona is a little too detached. And if you had someone like a Nicolas Cage or someone who was just more locked in and like felt like they believed all of this, I think it would just at least like focus the movie a little bit more.
I guess for me, Michael Bay's movies have always been about that tension between those two things that you identified, right?
Mm-hmm.
About wild over the top action and some kind of ultra patriotic, rugged, individualistic, do the right thing machismo, and how you balance those two things. And for me, the problem with Six Underground is he was allowed to let both things go completely unchecked, right? I would say the perfect balance of those from a base perspective would be The Rock and to a lesser extent Armageddon, right?
Yes, and that was also early Bay when he was a bit more restrained.
Right.
As I talked about in the Bay video, I really think Pearl Harbor was the turning point, because where he realized he didn't care about people, and then he just went full on into Bad Boys 2, which is just like the work of an evil person, and I say that in a positive way.
I don't know about evil. I would say misanthropic. How about that?
Yeah. Yes. Better. And so I kind of like, I think there is a version of Six Underground where you kind of strip away the this honestly the sincerity. And it's just about, maybe they're just trying to maybe it's like a revenge movie. And it's still a lot of the same stuff, but it's just, but you don't have any of the elements about these people like with this higher calling, like serving this great purpose and really doing this for like the good of the world. And it's really, and it's more self-serving. And I feel like that justifies its tendency to just get into some really like gnarly misanthropic territory.
Yeah, or just tamp them both down a little bit, tamp both sides down, like tamp down the earnestness, also tamp down the out of control action and violence, and that might have been a movie that was easier to sit through, literally, because it's difficult to withstand that movie all at one time.
Did you see it at home or in theaters?
I'm not as brave as you, Patrick. I did not go to the theater to see Six Underground.
It's an experience. Yeah, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Couple of other thoughts about Six Underground that I want to throw out there. One is that there's this actor named Peyman Moaadi or Peyman Moaadi. I don't know if you know who this is, but he is in Six Underground.
I don't.
And
who does he play?
He plays let's see, Murat Alimov in Six Underground.
Of course.
So here's the thing about Peyman is this guy is a brilliant actor. The first movie I ever saw him in was A Separation, the Oscar Farhadi movie from 2011. You ever see that movie?
I'm ashamed. I still have not.
That is a brilliant movie, and I was
heard nothing but great stuff about it.
Completely blown away when I watched it. And then everything I've seen him in the U.S. has been a shadow of that role. Specifically,
apparently he's also in 13 Hours.
He was in 13 Hours, yeah. And he was also in Westworld recently. He's not bad in any of these things, but it's just like You ever have that experience where you see an actor or a director make something amazing, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like can't wait to watch their next thing, and then it's not necessarily terrible. It's just like, ooh, not quite as amazing as the first thing you saw them in.
Yeah.
So I had that experience. I was like, oh man, Peyman, dude, a Separation, man, like that was so freaking good. Anyway, I would say you need to watch a Separation just so you can understand how good that actor can be.
I do. I will say I find it very interesting that he has now worked with Michael Bay in 2 movies.
It's true. It's true. He kept coming back. He kept coming back.
I guess they have I would love to imagine that Michael Bay saw a Separation and is like, that's the guy.
Exactly.
That would make me so happy.
Exactly. That's what I think happened. I mean, that was probably one of his best known movies before he started making movies in the U.S. regularly.
Yeah.
But anyway. And then the other thing I want to bring up, and then we're gonna throw it to questions in YouTube. So just like feel free to hit us with questions, and I'll put them up on the screen and ask Patrick them. The other thing that I noticed about Six Underground that you brought up in the video is a lot of gore in this movie. You know, like it's the goriest Michael Bay movie in like a decade, basically, right? I mean, he's been holding back on the gore for all the Transformers movies, and now left unchecked, he's like, just eviscerate a human body in as many creative ways as possible. Use gigantic magnets with like metallic objects to like destroy them, tear them limb from limb. And what is valuable about Six Underground as a cultural artifact is that we are seeing Michael Bay distilled into his purest essence, I think. Like, even the Transformers movies, I thought, oh, this is just pure Bay because he's just doing whatever the hell he wants, like explosions, whatever. No, Patrick, no. This is pure Bay. Six Underground is pure Bay. It's
true.
Car commercial-esque, like, we're freaking ripping humans apart, like, in the most grotesque ways imaginable. No, there's no studio notes to tell him no. This is pure Bay. This is like mainlining Bay, in my opinion. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I mean, again, I would point to that opening car chase in Florence, which I do think is like the best stretch of the movie. But right there, even things like so, are you aware that Michael Bay he hates humans, but he loves dogs? He owns. I think he has always owned about 2 like really massive dogs. He loves dogs. He cares. He like donates to like, charities to like protect and care for dogs. It's like the only thing he seems like really sincere about, other than the military. Mm-hmm. But like even in that opening car chase, there's this part where the main character's car like drifts in super slow motion around like the statue, nearly hitting many people. And you watch, and they have this shot where a couple puppies, like in close up, leap out of the way and are okay. In comparison, you get a woman like holding her baby, running for cover, and in super slow motion, a pigeon just smacks her in the head. So protecting dogs, just
paramount importance.
Gotta
do it.
But like insulting people and
humiliating humans and possibly murdering them, completely acceptable.
Yeah, that's it.
I did. I did really enjoy when you pointed out the fact that like the grenade launcher from that the grenade from that grenade launcher, like I had forgotten that it smashes open that guy's mouth before it kills him, and I was just like, wow, like, was that really necessary? If this is a studio film, someone would probably be like, is that really necessary? But again, left unchecked.
And you look at how beautiful it's like the lighting on the shot when he gets hit in the face with the grenade. I mean, it's honestly like it's like a cologne commercial. It's beautiful. And he got a cinematographer I really like, Bojan Bazeli, to shoot this one. And like, again, like awful things happening, it all looks gorgeous.
Yeah. Where would you rank this in the pantheon of Bay movies for you?
In terms of ranking Bay movies, I will say I get the Transformers movies really throw off my ranking.
Yeah. I would put all the Transformers at the bottom, to be honest. Like, let's just leave them at the bottom, in an unassorted clump. That's kind of my way of approaching.
I mean, I think the first Transformers, it does kind of resemble a real movie in a way the others don't.
It's true. No, agreed.
And I think the third might actually be my favorite.
Dark of the Moon, I believe, right?
Yeah, mostly the one where they destroy Chicago. And it's hard to say. I would put Six Underground, I think, probably like in close to the middle of his whole ranking, but like a bit more toward the bottom.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, can I ask what your favorite Bay film is as well?
I think it's Pain and Gain.
Wow,
Pain and Gain.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, my top two. Actually, my top three Bay movies are Pain and Gain, Bad Boys 2, and The Rock.
All right, interesting. Good choices.
Yeah.
For me, it's probably like number one, unquestionably, is The Rock. I've seen that movie like I saw it like 3 times in theaters. I think when it came out. I mean,
it's really good.
It is. It's exactly what I said. It balances those two things really well. Of like unbridled violence and this kind of patriotic, do the right thing element. That I'm like, it actually feels like. Well, and what's great about The Rock too. So it actually feels like the characters are doing something noble in The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about The Rock too is you sympathize with the villain in The Rock. Like,
you're like Ed Harris is bringing.
I don't know if
movie.
I actually like. Maybe Ed Harris is right. In this movie, like that's kind of what you want in a movie is to make you like feel like, okay, like this guy has a point. And so that confluence of events never happened again in a Babe movie, in my opinion.
No, I mean that thing. I think The Rock is maybe his like a sort of best traditional movie.
Yes.
The thing about Pain and Gain is I think that is his most. That is like a more purely personal movie. That feels like an actual look into Michael Bay's worldview. While The Rock is a bit more work for hire.
Fair enough. Okay, let's take some questions in the YouTube chat. If you have any questions, pop them in here. I'll put them up on the screen, and we will talk about them. Okay, so here's a question from Chaz Casaza. When and how will you bring back Blue Flame Special? Any thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I have, I think, a couple ideas for potential episodes, but they're not currently on the calendar. So, I mean, it really comes down to when there's a very specific, different aspect of action filmmaking that I really want to talk about. So,
have you watched any good action movies recently?
I'm really.
I'm trying to think. It's been a while since I watched a good action. You know what? I got the Inception 4K UHD Blu-ray last night. I popped it in, watched the opening scene. Looks incredible. I don't know if that's really an action movie though.
Yeah. I mean, it has action scenes.
It has action in it, right? But
yeah. I will. I don't actually want. Okay.
Do you not reveal it? You don't reveal it.
I don't want to say too much just because there are videos about action movies coming up very soon.
Okay.
Not Blue Flame Special videos, but videos specifically about action movies.
All right, say no more then. We will not discuss further. Okay. What did you think of the new Bad Boys movie? If Bad Boys 2 is in your top 3 Bay, what do you think of Bad Boys for Life?
I was shocked that I enjoyed Bad Boys for Life. I had such low expectations. And then I watched it. I was like, okay. My two main things were, it felt like a real, okay. It was the first movie where I actually kind of cared about the story and characters. And I say that as someone who likes Bad Boys 1 and 2. I did really miss the Michael Bay style and approach to it, because like whenever there were like people would drive cars or there'd be a low angle shot or there'd be any action scene, it always felt really lacking in energy compared to the Bay movies. And so I really missed the Bay approach. I think as far as the script goes, by far the best script of the trilogy.
Yeah, because it actually follows roughly like a 3-act structure. Although it does have
it does.
I think it kind of has like a little 4th act at the end there, but yeah.
Yeah, but then it actually like it and we're seeing it in January, and I hate to bring this up, but you know we were still reeling from Rise of Skywalker, and it was so weird to see a third Bad Boys movie of all things deliver a more satisfying conclusion to a trilogy that also retconned in like
family member stuff, yeah,
to people's pasts, but it was more, but it worked. And yeah, I mean, for me, Bad Boys for Life was like a 3 stars out of 5 movie, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to.
All right. So here is a question, and by the way, feel free to ask any questions if there's one you want to call out. Happy to put it on there. Esper Fitzroy has an interesting question. If Pain and Gain is Bay's most personal film, does that contradict all the militaristic patriotism? Because in that movie, the American dream is a get-rich-quick scheme done by morons.
That is a good question.
Well, here's what I would say about that, is that the get-rich-quick scheme perpetrated by morons, those guys are... While they are the protagonists of the movie, I don't know that they're made out to be admirable people. You know, like you might want to emulate them because they come off as slightly cool, but in reality, they were horrifying human beings that like tortured this man for like months. And so I don't know if I accept the premise of this question that like these guys are the heroes of the story, because when you watch Transformers, you want to be, what's his name? Josh Duhamel or whatever. Is he in
Josh Duhamel and Tyrese Gibson?
You want to be those guys. You want to be like leading the charge of humanity against like alien things that are going to eradicate us. I don't think you watch Pain and Gain and you're like, I want to be like Mark Wahlberg in that movie. You know what I mean? That's kind of my
thing. I think Bay's feelings about like average Americans are extremely different than his feelings about like, you know, American Marines.
Yes. And that's a great way of summarizing his opinion on. So I would say interesting point, Esper, but don't know if we agree that like Pain and Gain kind of means what you're implying there.
Right.
Okay. Here's another question that I thought was a great one. Oh yeah. Okay. This is a question I want to know the answer to, Patrick, which is Chris Dovacek asks, "Are you a fan of Jonathan Glazer's films? And what is the chance we could get a video on his short filmography?"
So I have seen 2 of Jonathan Glazer's 3 movies, and I like them both. I like Sexy Beast, and I like Under the Skin. I still haven't seen Birth. I've only seen each of those movies once, and I really need to revisit them and see Birth before I could ever even commit to making a video about them. I will say I'm a very big fan of Glazer's commercials and music videos. Those I am far more well-versed in, whether it's his Virtual Insanity video for Jamiroquai, his incredible... Did you ever see his Guinness commercial, the black and white surfing one with the waves turning into horses?
No.
One of the greatest commercials ever made.
Maybe I can get it and play it in this chat real quick.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I think it's like if you search like Guinness surfing, it'll probably come up.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Guinness. But yeah, I've watched a lot of his earlier commercial and music video stuff, and I think it's really incredible.
Yeah, I see it's on YouTube right now. I'm not gonna play it in the chat because it's like a minute and a half long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will check it out right after this. So Under the Skin. I rated Under the Skin as my number 3 movie of the decade.
Oh, wow.
I just think it is a tremendous piece of work.
I got to watch it again.
Yeah.
I liked it.
You liked it, but it wasn't like... It's because I think this is the first. I didn't even know you had watched it until just now, so I don't know that.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters.
Yeah, same.
I think it was one of those things where, like, you know, it was a movie that I saw in theaters and was like, I liked that. I think I really need to see that again to like really dig into it and appreciate it fully. And then I just didn't.
Yeah. There was this interview that Steven Soderbergh gave a long time ago to the Daily Beast. This is from like Steven Soderbergh has generally very smart opinions on the state of the film industry, and he's in general been ahead of the curve. I mean, the guy is shooting movies on iPhones right now, right? And he had the same. This might not be the exact interview, but he's mentioned this in a few interviews, and I'll read a quote from this interview in the Daily Beast where he's basically lamenting what cinema has become in many of his interviews. He's like, there's no more mid-budget movie. I could never make an Out of Sight anymore today, you know? And so people ask him, like, the question is, what would you say to people who'd argue that there are still great auteurs at work in Hollywood? Paul Thomas Anderson, the Coen brothers, Wes Anderson, Sofia Coppola, Woody Allen, Terrence Malick, and so on. They're all making movies. And Steven Soderbergh says, I would argue that in terms of movies and the movie business, we are all still on the margins. Let's put it this way. Are there people out there still making cinema? Of course there are. But when I say cinema is shrinking as a concept, why isn't Under the Skin a bigger hit than it is? That's a really good movie. That is a piece of cinema. I'm looking at it going, why isn't this a bigger hit? Why isn't this a hit at all? I think in the 1970s it would have been a hit, you know? At least it would have been a conversation. That movie came out and it wasn't even a conversation. And I'm looking at it like, this is really extraordinary. I couldn't even get friends to go to the movie. There's no reason why Under the Skin shouldn't do well, and there's no reason everybody shouldn't be talking about it. That to me is an example of what's happened. That to me is what's gone, end quote. So it's really fascinating that like he is using Under the Skin as the vanguard of cinema, and also as an example of why cinema as we used to know it has kind of gone away. Cinema and the discourse around it. So
I mean, that's a really strong point. I do think he's right. If that came out in the 70s, I mean, obviously in the 70s, you know, you had to go to the movies, to a theater to see a new movie, and I don't think that there were really art house theaters in the way there are now, and so I feel like that movie would have just ended up getting a wider release if it got made, and wouldn't have been relegated to small art house theaters in like major cities. And yeah, I don't disagree with what he's saying.
Yeah. So anyway, Patrick, check out Under the Skin. And if you haven't watched it, if you're watching this, if you've somehow made it to the end of this video and you haven't seen Under the Skin, check out Under the Skin. It is a brilliant movie. But yeah, Patrick, I mean, like, there should be a Criterion Under the Skin, you know? It should, like, people should be talking about it. Like, he's previously said basically, like, people will be talking about it for, like, a decade, you know? Like, that's how good it is. Anyway, okay. I'm going to get off my Under the Skin soapbox now. Fought Ball in the chat room says, do you have any examples of the making of a movie being more interesting than the movie itself? I would submit that describes most films. Like many movies, the story of making them is more interesting than the movie itself. But Patrick,
I mean, I'm sure if we ever honestly get a real oral history of Cats, it'll be more interesting than watching it. I mean, on like stuff like I thought that article about like the behind the scenes stuff in Dolittle was, I haven't seen the movie, but I'm sure it was more like the movie is less interesting than that story was, where they had like 6 directors like just like constantly coming in to like do a pass at it and shoot new scenes. Yeah, I feel like it happens pretty regularly.
So I would say every Disney Star Wars film has an interesting story behind it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, kind of except The Last Jedi, the one that just had a smooth production start to finish.
Yeah,
it's like,
but yeah, when you think of
like they finished the movie early.
When you think he came in under budget and early. When you think of Rogue One, which had to be significantly redone or scenes added or reshoots and so on, you think about Solo. Which I would argue is a fairly uninteresting movie when it comes to Star Wars mythos, but the making of it is really interesting. Like they had shot most of the film. They were like weeks away from wrapping, and then Ron Howard comes in to replace the directors, Phil and Lord, but they leave a lot of the Phil and Lord stuff in the movie still. Like you can see glimpses of the comedy that would have been there.
Right, but apparently Howard, because of DGA rules, he shot enough of it to get sole directing credit.
Yeah. So it's like that conversation is really interesting as well. And then of course, Rise of Skywalker, where the director of that movie is replaced, right? Also, didn't Josh Trank, wasn't he going to do a movie? Was he going to do something as well?
I think way back he was apparently.
He's going to do the Boba Fett movie, right? Was that right?
Yeah, I think it was like rumored to be the Boba Fett movie, but that ended like so early on, like before the movie was even officially announced, just that he was going to make one. Right. Yeah, I mean, from people I've talked to who like know people who know things. The stuff that I've heard about Rise of Skywalker is so weird and interesting.
Yeah.
And I desperately want, I just look, if anyone is watching this works at Lucasfilm and wants to just talk to me. I promise I'm very discreet, but I want to know everything.
Yeah, indeed. I will also point out that I think, people in the chat room have pointed out The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Like, did you ever see Lost in La Mancha? I think that was the title of the film, right?
Yes. Yeah. It was such an uncomfortable watch because as someone who's on like a small scale dealt with countless amateur filmmaking problems.
Yeah.
I'll never forget trying to make a feature film in like my senior year of high school, and it was an action movie, and both my lead actors injured their legs and couldn't walk. We finished it. We found out a way to do it, but like I had everything go wrong, and watching that movie was just everything I ever dealt with, but on a massive scale with so much money involved, and it was just so uncomfortable to watch.
That reminds me of, do you remember that movie Tag that came out, the comedy with like Ed Helms and Jeremy Renner?
The one where Jeremy Renner broke his arms?
Broke both of his arms 3 days into filming the movie, which forced the studio to resort to special effects in making the movie Tag. Anyway,
I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably like, so as we're talking about these, it's like every single one of these stories is more interesting than the movie that it's referring to, in my opinion.
Yes. So again, it is a miracle that movies get made in the first place.
Agreed.
And the amount of time they take and the amount of people involved, I feel like you're always going to have an interesting story, whether it gets out to the public or not.
So Michael Scully in the chat says, I need a documentary about the troubled production of New Mutants. So here's my question for you, Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the public will ever see New Mutants? And or follow-up question, is New Mutants actually a movie that exists, or is it purely a marketing stunt that has just been delayed forever and now seemingly permanently?
I mean, this is a great question. The thing about New Mutants is I feel like, and again, this is just me like reading, reports on, like a Variety and the Hollywood Reporter and stuff. It seems like it wasn't necessarily the production that was so troubled. It's just that the studio stuff, like after they finished production.
Yeah, because the movie is, assuming we've been told the truth, the movie is theoretically done.
And it's the original cut because it wasn't like Fox wanted them to do reshoots, but then all the Disney merger stuff happened, and then they just ended up not happening, and then it kind of got stuck in limbo there. I mean, I will say, I've said this before in other places, but I want to reiterate it. I truly hope that New Mutants does not get dropped on streaming. I want them to wait and give it a theatrical release whenever this all ends and movie theaters reopen, because that movie has been through so much that I think it deserves the dignity of a theatrical release.
Are you familiar with the sunk cost fallacy, Patrick?
Yes.
I don't think we will ever. I submit we will never see New Mutants in a theater. That is my prediction.
And that posters with its various incorrect release dates will become like collector's items worth thousands of dollars.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we're gonna be lucky if we ever see it, and then let alone where it. Maybe they'll release it on Hulu or something. But We'll be lucky if we ever see it.
It's true.
Which is just like, wow, that movie is just kind of cursed, huh?
It is. I feel bad for it.
Indeed. All right. Any other questions you want to talk about, or anything else in the chat you want to bring up? Otherwise, we can wrap this up.
I don't think so. I think this has been a fun conversation.
It's been a zesty enterprise, Patrick, as always.
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to wrap up here. If you've enjoyed this conversation, obviously subscribe to this channel. You can also check out more of my work whenever I start making it again at youtube.com/Dave Chensky. That's Dave Chen SKY. A bunch of my other links are below in the description. Patrick, you wanna take us out for today?
Yeah. Just everyone. I assume you've already seen the new video, so I don't need to tell you to watch that. But thanks for tuning in. Hope you're all staying safe.
Imagine watching this instead of the new video. That's like watching a director's commentary before watching the movie. It's like, who does that?
I have no idea.
But they usually tell you at the beginning of the director's commentary, don't listen to this unless you've watched the video already.
Right. But also, David, remember, this is a very strange time we're living in.
Correct.
The rules don't apply. Who knows what's happening?
Up is down, black is white, dogs and cats sleeping together.
We're in that big void from Under the Skin.
Yep.
Actually, let's end it on this note. I need to rewatch Under the Skin, and if you haven't seen it, watch it.
All right. Check it out. We'll see you on the next one of these.